In this video, I'm going to show you how to add mixed numbers. So let's say we have 3 and 1/4 plus 2 and 4/5. Anytime I'm adding or subtracting fractions, I write them vertically. So I'm going to put my whole numbers in the whole number column on the left, 3 and 1/4, and the fractions in the fraction column on the right, 2 and 4/5. And my first step will be to find common denominators. So I'm going to look at 5 and 4, and I'm going to use a common denominator of 20. 5 and 4 both go into 20. So that will be my new denominator. So I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 5 go into 20? It goes in 4 times. I'm going to multiply the same thing with its numerator here, because this is equal to 1 whole, and when I multiply anything by 1 whole, I don't change the fraction. So the numerator becomes 16. In my fraction at the top, 4 goes into 25 times. So I'm going to do the same thing to the numerator. This is still 1 whole right here, so I am not changing my fraction. 1 times 5 is 5. Now I'm ready to add my new fractions. So I'm adding 5/20 and 6/20. 5 plus 6 gives me 21/20. Before I even move to the whole numbers, I'm going to see if this is more than 1 whole. Because 21 is greater than 20, it is more than 1 whole. It is an improper fraction. So I'm going to change this to a mixed number. As a mixed number, this becomes 1 and 1/20. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this 1 whole right here, and I'm going to carry it up to the whole number column. So now I'm ready to add my final column. I have 3 plus 2 plus 1. 3 plus 2 plus 1 gives me 6. And then I'm left with 1/20 in the fraction column. So my final answer is 6 and 1/20. Let's look at another example. So let's say I have 2 and 2/3 plus 6 and 5/8. Again, writing it vertically, 2 and 2/3, 6 and 5/8. This is an addition problem. So my common denominator for 8 and 3, I'm going to use 24. They both go into 24. It is a common multiple of them. 8 goes into 24 3 times. And I'm going to make sure I multiply my numerator by that so that I'm really multiplying the entire fraction by 1 whole. 5 times 3 is 15. And my first fraction, my top fraction, 3 goes into 24 8 times. Again, making sure I multiply by a version of 1 whole. 2 times 8 equals 16. So now I'm ready to add my numerators. 16 plus 15 is 31/24. However, this is an improper fraction, so I'm going to change it to a mixed number. 31/24 is equal to 1 and 7/24. This 1 whole will be carried to my whole number column. So now I'm ready to add up my totals. 6 plus 2 is 8, plus that 1 that I carried is 9, and I'm left with 7/24. So my answer is 9 and 7/24. Here is another example. 4 and 5/6 plus 5 and let's do 4/9. I'm going to write it vertically, 4 and 5/6, 5 and 4/9. And I'm going to separate my place values here. So now I'm ready for a common denominator of 6 and 9. Let's see, there's several things that I could use because 6 and 9 have several common multiples, The least common multiple is 18. Whenever possible, use the least common multiple if you can think of it in a reasonable amount of time, because when you do that, there's the minimal simplifying. So 9 goes into 18 twice. Multiplying by one whole did not change my fraction, so I have equivalent fractions. 4 times 2 is 8. 6 goes into 18 3 times. Multiplied by one whole for equivalent fractions. 5 times 3 equals 15. Ready to add my new fractions. 15 and 8 is 23 eighteenths. This is an improper fraction, so I'm going to change it to a mixed number. As a mixed number, this is 1 and 5 eighteenths. My whole number that I just got here, I'm going to carry. So my total answer now, my fraction will still be 5 eighteenths, and my whole number will be 5 plus 4 plus 1, which is 10. So my answer is 10 and 5 eighteenths. One last example of adding mixed numbers. 5 and 4 6 plus 3 and 5 tenths. Now, I purposely chose this example of something that is not simplified to begin with. Whenever possible, I look at my problem and simplify before I begin. So 5 and 4 6, I can simplify by dividing by 2 over 2, and I can then get 5 and 2 thirds. 3 and 5 tenths can also be simplified by dividing by 5 over 5, and I would get 3 and 1/2. So now I'm going to use those simplified fractions for my problem. 5 and 2/3, 3 and 1/2. A common denominator for 2 and 3 is 6. 2 goes into 6 3 times, multiplying by one whole to get me equivalent fractions. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 goes into 6 twice. 2 times 2 equals 4. 4 6 plus 3 6 is 7 6, which is an improper fraction. As a mixed number, this is 1 and 1/6. I'll carry my whole number up to the whole number place value. And now I'm ready to add everything up. So in my fraction, I have 1/6 left. In my whole numbers, I have 5 plus 3 plus 1, which is 9. So I have 9 and 1/6. Now, just as an illustration here, I can take my original problem, 5 and 4 6, and 3 and 5 tenths, and I can do exactly the same thing to show you that they are the same answer, but the one without simplifying, there's going to be more work that I have to do. So just very quickly to look at it, 10 and 6 has a common denominator of 60, but there actually is a smaller number that they both go into. They will both go into 30, so I'm going to use 30. 10 goes into 30 3 times. 5 times 3 equals 15. 6 goes into 30 5 times. 4 times 5 equals 20. 20 and 15 is 35 thirtieths. As a mixed number, that is 1 and 5 thirtieths. Going to carry my 1. And just like what I did before, I'm left with 5 thirtieths and 9. However, my 5 thirtieths is now not in simplest form, so I am going to have to divide by 5 over 5 here to get 1/6. So when I simplify first up here, it prevents me from having to simplify at the end as I did in this problem.